The hidden jewel, eels and the price of beauty. Beneath the trembling skin of the ocean, where light forgets to follow and silence presses in like velvet, there lives a creature of mystery. Not a shark. Not a whale. Not even something you'd think twice about if it slithered across your feet. But to those who know, those who seek rarity, elegance, and secrets bound in scales, this creature is treasure. It is the eel. Not the kind that sizzles on a Vietnamese grill, nor the one coiled in the muddy corners of a village stream. No, this one is different. This is the wild eel, sleek, elusive, painted in shades of bronze and gold. A ghost that flickers beneath coral shadows. A survivor from a forgotten world. And in a strange twist of fate, it has become one of the ocean's most expensive pets. In Vietnam, the eel is food. Common, hearty, delicious. A working man's protein. Fished at dawn. Sold by noon. Boiled, grilled, or tossed in porridge by dinner. But in America, it is something else entirely. It is art. It is decor. It is a living sculpture that swims with elegance through high-end garden ponds, illuminated by manicured moonlight. And it can cost up to $800 a piece. That price tag, however, isn't for flavor. It's for rarity. For color. For silence. For the strange, soothing motion of a body designed to glide, not thrash. In Los Angeles or Miami, these eels are status symbols. Not eaten. Not touched. Just watched. Quietly. Reverently. Like flame behind glass. And to bring them to that glass, a hidden journey must unfold. It begins far from luxury. Far from any koi pond or modern mansion. It begins underwater. In places maps do not bother to name. Where the sea is so deep that sunlight becomes myth. There, divers descend. Not with harpoons. Not with nets. But with patience. And cages, small, delicate, and designed not to harm. Because the eel, though wild, is fragile. Its body bruises easily. Its mind stresses quickly. And stress kills profit. So the cage must coax, not trap. The diver must wait, not minutes, but hours, beside a reef's lip, until the eel emerges, curious, cautious, flowing like ink through water. Then, if luck holds, it enters the cage. And the journey begins. But catching it is only the start. To keep it alive, to keep it beautiful, is the real test. The water it travels in must be near perfect, mineral balanced, oxygen rich, temperature stable. Every bump in the road, every second too warm, too cold, too loud, can change the eel's color. Or worse, break its spirit. And no one pays $800 for an eel that sulks. So handlers become caretakers. Trucks become aquariums. And science becomes ritual. At checkpoints, they test the water like sommeliers taste wine. At warehouses, they whisper as if afraid to wake the eel from a dream. Because this creature, once a slither in the dark, is now a gem. A jewel. A product. A presence. And when it finally arrives, alive, intact, gleaming, it does not go to a fish market. It goes to a gallery of gardens. To Japanese-style courtyards tucked behind villas. To spas that sell peace by the hour. To homes where fountains murmur and bamboo leans like old poets. There, the eel is released into ornamental ponds. Not for swimming. Not for eating. But for watching. For meditating upon. For owning a piece of nature so elusive, so perfect, that it humbles even the viewer. And somehow, without words, without gaze, it becomes the most powerful thing in the room. Some say it is wrong. To take something wild and make it decoration. To pull a soul from the ocean just to admire its shape in chlorinated light. And maybe they are right. But the eel, in its quiet way, does not seem to care. It does what it has always done. It moves. It glides through filtered water the way it once glided through coral hulls. It hides in shadowed corners, not because it's trapped, but because it's choosing stillness. Because stillness is beauty too. There is a strange poetry in it all. A creature once caught for soup, now worth more than gold. Not because it changed. But because we did. Because we looked again. Because we saw past the slime and the shiver and the squirm, and into something deeper. Elegance. Design. A life shaped not for us, but perfect nonetheless. And now, it lives not in fear, but in fountains. In silence. In stillness. Not every eel survives the journey. Some die in transport. Some reject captivity. Some lose their luster when their stress begins to show. But those who make it, those who stay sleek, unscarred, unshaken, become something strange. Symbols. Of wealth. Of taste. Of the line between wildness and art. And in a way, they carry a message. That beauty, when rare enough, can be more powerful than hunger. So the next time you see a pond glimmering beneath palm fronds, and something bronze flickers in the corner of your eye, know that it was once a ghost in the deep. A breath in the dark. A shimmer between coral teeth. And now, it lives, still quiet, still proud, not to be devoured, but to be remembered. The duel in the deep, man versus marlin. The sea was calm that morning, but not quiet. The hull of the old fishing boat creaked like an elder's spine. The wind sang in low whistles across the ropes. And somewhere below, in the vast, unblinking eye of the ocean, something ancient stirred. He stood barefoot on the deck, calloused toes gripping the salt-washed wood. His name wasn't important, not to the fish, not to the sea. But to the men on shore, he was known only as the Hook. He'd earned that name not from his gear, but from his resolve. 40 years on the water had stripped away everything soft. What remained was hardened muscle, leathery skin, and eyes that could read the waves like scripture. Today, though, was different. Because today, he wasn't fishing for food. He was fishing for a legend. The marlin. A ghost of the deep. Long as a canoe, fast as a rocket, sharp as a sword. Some called it a fish. Some called it a demon. He called it his rival. For months, tales had drifted through the fishing harbors of a blue giant, 700 kilograms of muscle and rage, slicing through the sea at 80 kilometers per hour, tearing lines, snapping rods, dragging men overboard like sea wraiths claiming tribute. Most gave up. He didn't. Because when you've spent your whole life battling storms in silence, you stop fearing monsters. You start looking for them. He set out before dawn, chasing the streaks of silver that marked baitfish trails. The ocean was glass, the air thick with salt and tension. Below him, the sonar blinked. Then, it screamed. The needle jumped. A massive shape, too large for the screen, moved beneath. And then, the strike. The reel shrieked. The line tore out in a blur of motion and heat. His muscles tensed, spine arched, arms like cables. The rod bent, a perfect, trembling arc. It was here. The marlin. The battle began. It didn't leap like in the stories. Not yet. No, at first it dove, deep and deliberate. It tested him, pulled him out to sea, like a wolf dragging prey from the herd. Hour 1, sweat soaked his shirt. Hour 2, his hands blistered. Hour 3, blood began to mix with salt on the deck. Still, he held on. Around him, the sea mocked his effort. No land in sight. No sound but the shrill buzz of tensioned line. Above, the sun hung like a coin of fire, watching silently. And then, it rose. The marlin broke the surface with the fury of a god. It exploded from the depths, a blur of cobalt, steel, and rage, tail slicing air, bill arcing like a knight's lance. He gasped. It wasn't a fish. It was a fighter jet with fins. A gladiator in silver armor. A titan crowned in foam and fury. And in that second, the line almost snapped. But it didn't. Because he refused. He tightened his grip and leaned back, using every ounce of memory and muscle, every lesson the sea had carved into his bones. This wasn't about meat. This was about respect. They danced for hours. Each pull met with a counter. Each leap with a prayer. Each surge with defiance. The boat drifted further from shore. Time melted. He no longer remembered the day. Only the rhythm, pull, reel, brace. Pull, reel, brace. At one point, the marlin dragged the boat in circles, a slow spiral that felt like fate itself winding tighter and tighter. But he didn't curse. Didn't cry. He only whispered. You've got the ocean behind you. I've got 40 years. Let's see who runs out first. Finally, the marlin tired. Not defeated, just slower. It no longer leapt. Now it circled, majestic, reluctant, proud. He saw its eye surface. It didn't blink. It stared at him. Not with fear. But with recognition. A worthy opponent. And in that moment, he hesitated. Not from doubt. But from awe. Here was a creature that had outrun sharks. Sliced through nets. Carried legends on its back. And now, it bowed to no one. The line drew it closer. He reached for the gaff. And then, paused. Not because he couldn't. Because he knew what it meant. To conquer such a beast wasn't just victory. It was an ending. A silence. So, he lowered the gaff. Cut the line. And whispered, "Go." The marlin hovered for one eternal moment. Then turned, and vanished. No splash. No thrash. Only a ripple. He sat on the deck as dusk bled across the sky, fingers numb, arms shaking, heart full. He'd caught nothing. But he'd won everything. Because the sea does not reward greed. It rewards those who understand the weight of what lives beneath. Back at shore, no one asked where the fish was. They saw the torn gloves. The red welts. The silent pride. They understood. And in some distant reef, the marlin swam on. Scarred. Unbroken. A legend reborn. In the kitchens of fine restaurants, marlin is a delicacy, seared, smoked, or sliced into jewel-toned sushi. Its flesh carries the stories of the sea, each bite a whisper of struggle, speed, and salt. But no dish, no plate, no feast could ever compare to the taste of that battle. That moment when man met beast, and both walked away. Because sometimes, the greatest catch is the one you choose to let go. The giant's patience, harvesting the ghost beneath the sea. Beneath the sapphire veil of the Pacific, far from the thrumming ports and salt-rust docks, there lies a world untouched by noise. It is not empty. It breathes in silence, with pulse and purpose. There, wrapped in the folds of volcanic rock and coral caverns, a creature waits. Not out of fear. Not out of laziness. But because that is its nature. To hide. To observe. To melt into the shadows like ink in a sleeping tide. It is the Pacific giant octopus, 5 meters of silent muscle, brain, and ancient instinct. And to catch one, you do not fight. You wait. The fishermen who seek it are not like others. They do not cast lines. They do not hurl spears. They do not shout or stomp or challenge the sea with engines roaring and nets flung in haste. No. They build quiet things. Stone-colored, hand-carved lures that resemble home, small, hollow dens shaped like underwater caves. No bait. No hooks. No violence. Just shelter. Because that's what the octopus craves. Each trap is dropped gently onto the seafloor, sometimes 50 meters deep, resting beside kelp beds or basalt cliffs. Then, the waiting begins. Not days. Not weeks. But seasons. 3 months. Sometimes 4. The sea shifts, moons turn, and still they wait. Because octopuses are creatures of rhythm. Of lunar instinct and tidal memory. They return to the same kind of place again and again, always cautious, always aware. And when one finally settles inside a trap, it does so not because it was tricked, but because it believed it was safe. The harvest is careful. Divers descend with reverence, like monks approaching a sacred altar. There is no yanking. No struggle. Only slow movements and quiet hands. If the octopus resists, it is let go. No meat is worth the trauma of panic. Only those that have truly made a home are taken, because these are the ones whose meat will carry the calmness of the sea, not the fear of capture. And that matters. It matters to the taste. It matters to the tradition. And most of all, it matters to the respect between man and nature. On shore, the process begins not with knives, but with salt. Coarse, white grains rubbed into the skin in circular motions, like ancient ritual. The purpose? To strip away mucus, residue, anything that dulls the flavor of the deep. It's not a brutal scrubbing. It's a dialogue. The salt speaks to the flesh. The flesh responds. What remains is a white, glistening meat, crisp at the edges, tender at heart. Flesh that has soaked in the patience of months. Flesh that whispers of cold stone and slow tides. Then comes the rinse. Not with ordinary water, but with specially calibrated pressure jets. Machines designed to mimic the swirl of current, the polish of surf. Every sucker, every groove is cleansed. What emerges is not just seafood. It is story. It is memory. It is the taste of time itself. To eat this octopus is not just to consume. It is to understand. To understand what it means to wait. To respect. To never rush what the ocean gives only in rhythm. Its suction cups are like puzzle pieces of a larger language, each one a soft declaration of the life it once lived. Its arms curl on the plate not in fear, but in grace. And the flavor? A clean, mineral sweetness, like rain on stone. Like fog touching fire. In Tokyo, it becomes sashimi, laid in spirals beside shiso leaves, admired before eaten. In Barcelona, it is grilled on charcoal, a drizzle of lemon, the crackle of sea salt as it hits the heat. But no matter where it ends up, every bite carries a memory from the bottom of the sea. And those who know, they can taste the difference. They can taste the patience. They can taste the silence. There are few professions left in the world where success depends on waiting. Not conquering. Not cornering. Not forcing. Just waiting. This is one of them. To catch a giant octopus is to walk alongside the rhythm of nature, not to race ahead, not to fall behind. And that is why these creatures have become delicacies, not just for their taste, but for what they represent. They are not trophies. They are teachers. Some say we are meant to dominate the wild. That we are apex. That we are above. But those who trap octopus with empty dens and months of silence, they know better. They know that true mastery is not about power, it's about alignment. It's about lowering yourself to the pulse of a world far older than language. A world where trust is earned not with tools, but with time. So when you see it on a plate, glistening, curled, dusted with sea herbs, know this. You are not looking at food. You are looking at devotion. You are tasting a season of silence, shaped by stone, salt, and stillness. And that is a flavor the impatient will never know.